On behalf of the college, my name is Ray Comiskey. I'm the new president here at the college, and we want to welcome you to our first speaker series of the year, my first overall, and it's just great to see the turnout. And to quote one of our retirees, he only came for the food. You know, he comes for programs too. I know he does. Before we get started, a couple of things very quickly. I don't think it's escaped anyone's notice that today is the anniversary of the attacks on the Twin Towers. So with your indulgence, could we take just a quick moment of silence to honor those who we lost on 9/11? Thank you. Now, on that note, I also want to point out, you may have noticed driving in, we have what is called the Avenue of Flags. That is a tradition maintained by 12 of our Korean War veterans, and they wanted you to know that, of course, today's flags are out in honor of the 9/11 attacks, but they also want to let you know that next Friday the flags will be out again because that's the POW MIA Day. So the Prisoners of War Missing in Action recognition next Friday as well. So we appreciate what they do in recognizing the service given by those who we don't have among us anymore, and we appreciate them taking the time to honor all those who have served. Well, the main reason we're here today is to hear our speaker, so let me change the tone here a little bit and introduce Robert Gunthner to you. Bob is the owner and managing partner of Fitz's Bottling Company, which is a St. Louis specialty beverage company. The company produces and sells a line of premium sodas, including root beer, cream, orange, diet root beer, diet cream, strawberry, ginger ale, and grape. And I hope you got a chance to have some samples back there. If you didn't, please make sure you do so before you leave. The company also owns a casual dining restaurant, Fitz's American Grill and Bottling Works, which happens to house the vintage bottling process for the soda lines. Bob has considerable beverage and marketing brand experience, both domestically and internationally. In the 1980s, he held a number of brand management posts with Anheuser-Busch, including brand manager for Busch Beer and later Budweiser. Most notable among his accomplishments was the creation of the Bud Bowl, which was the acclaimed promotional advertising experience in the Super Bowl. Bob holds a bachelor's degree in finance from the University of Illinois and an MBA from Indiana University's Kelley School of Business with a marketing specialty. He is an adjunct instructor of entrepreneurial marketing at Webster University, is a periodic guest speaker at the Olin School of Business and Kelley School of Business, is on the boards of the St. Louis ARC and the University City Children's Center. Bob and his family live in Des Peres. So without further ado, I will turn the microphone over, and if you will welcome Bob Gunthner.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Well, thank you. Thank you for having me here today. Am I on? I am. What a lovely day down here. And, you know, this is probably the first time in several years that I've taken the drive down Tesson Ferry all the way to Hillsboro. And what a nice drive that is, and what a pretty part of the world it is. So, and I was knocked out by the college campus here. I think Webster's kind of a neat campus, but boy, this is just beautiful here. You got a great setting for it, so you ought to be very proud of what you have here. It looks like a real neat institution. Okay, what we're going to talk about today is Fitz's. How many of you have been to the restaurant? Anyone been to the restaurant? Oh, good, great. I hope you had a good time, and I hope the bottling line was operating the day that you were there and all those kind of things. We're going to spend a little time today talking about how we market Fitz's. And I chose marketing because that's the thing that's kind of highest visibility and is the most interesting. And usually people have some opinions about marketing as well. And so I hope you guys do, and I hope you are bold enough to ask some questions and to get involved with the discussion, because that's what I'm going to try to encourage. So if at any point during the presentation you have something to say, just raise your hand and I'll be happy to talk to you. Okay? Well, what we're going to talk about is guerrilla marketing, and to help further define that, to make sure we're all clear, guerrilla marketing is kind of like guerrilla warfare, where you use unconventional tactics. And that's what we try to do with Fitz's, and that's what a lot of small businesses try to do. At one point in my career, I was involved with Super Bowl advertising. And I can guarantee you that one thing we will not do at Fitz's ever is Super Bowl advertising. It is well beyond our financial capabilities, and it's probably well beyond our management capabilities as well. But there are a lot of things that we do that are a bit different from Coke or Pepsi or Applebee's or Fridays that helps us stay competitive. And so we're going to take some time to talk about that. And in fact, let's go to our first slide, which that little thing that's over on the side there, do you know how we can make that go away? Great. There we go. It was that simple, huh? I should take you everywhere. I have no technical competence whatsoever. So what we're going to talk about is what is Fitz's and how do we thrive as a guerrilla marketer, because we are in two very competitive segments. The soft drink industry is extraordinarily competitive, and so is casual dining. All you have to do is turn on the TV and see how competitive those two segments, those two industries are. We're going to talk a little bit about what our competitive advantages are, what our market position is, and then how we approach marketing and how we grow the business. Okay? So a little bit about our history. Fitz's started off in 1947 as an old-fashioned drive-in. It was located close to where the current gallery. Has everyone been to the Galleria Mall up in the Clayton, Richmond Heights area? The original Fitz's Drive-In was started in 1947 by a guy by the name of James Fitzpatrick. Now, Mr. Fitzpatrick was a sugar salesman in St. Louis. He had a daughter by the name of Norma Jean, who was about ready to go off to college in 1947. And this was kind of in the days before there were a lot of grants and scholarships. So he needed a second source of income to fund Norma Jean's college education. He bought an old root beer stand, worked with a St. Louis flavor house, and created his own recipe, his own flavor for root beer, and went into business. So if you grew up in kind of the Clayton, Ladue, Maplewood, Brentwood, University City area in the late 40s, into the 50s, into the 60s, this is where you hung out on the weekends. It was a classic kind of teenage hangout, drive-in. You'd meet your buddies there, you'd meet your girlfriends there, or your boyfriend. In fact, we have several senior citizens that will come into the current restaurant down in University City on Delmar and say, oh, I remember going to the original Fitz's Drive-In when I was in high school, and I used to meet my boyfriend there, I used to meet my girlfriend there, and we just get done celebrating our 40th anniversary. So for a lot of St. Louisans, there's a very sentimental attachment to the original Fitz's Drive-In. There was another drive-in called the Parkmore, which is just about a mile down Clayton Road from where Fitz's is located, and so the kids would kind of cruise back and forth between Parkmore and the Fitz's. And then in the early 1970s, Mr. Fitzpatrick was ready to retire. His daughter, Norma Jean, by then was down in Dallas, Texas, and had 5 kids. And so she wasn't going to come back for the drive-in. So it closed. There was no more drive-in. There was no more Fitz's root beer. And that was pretty much the end of Fitz's in St. Louis for a period of time. Then in the mid-1980s, all of you drink Vest Soda. Are you familiar with Vest Soda? Yeah, well, the guy who owned Vest Soda at the time, a guy by the name of Don Schneeberger, found the original recipe for Fitz's and started making Fitz's again, and he packaged it in a 12-ounce can. And so that went on for several years. Then in 1993, there were 3 graduates from Washington University. 2 of them were lawyers by training, and one was an architect, that got together and bought the building that we're currently in on Delmar Boulevard and created what we have there today, which is Fitz's the restaurant and Fitz's the bottling line. And so Fitz's came back onto the St. Louis scene in 1993. So that's a little bit of the history of our business. A lot of people who grew up, especially in mid-county St. Louis, really have some very fond memories of the original Fitz's and the business that we currently have today. Now, the guys that started back in 1993 have been out of the business for about 10 years now. But they're the ones that kind of came up with the idea to bring it back. All right, next we're going to talk about what is Fitz. And I always use this kind of pyramid approach whenever I talk about Fitz's. And on top of the pyramid is the brand. And then on the two sides, on the two bottom sides, we have the restaurant operation and the soda operation. And both of these generate revenue and profits for the company. They're two separate divisions within the same company. But they both support each other, right? The restaurant helps us sell the soda, and the soda helps get people to come to the restaurant. So there's an interaction between our restaurant operation and our soda operation, and it's all intended to increase the value of the brand. What we're trying to do here is increase the perceived market value of our brand, and you do that by having successful operations. And so it all works together as the brand becomes bigger, as people become more and more aware of it. It helps us on the operational side with the restaurant, and it helps us on the operational side with bottling. So even though they're kind of two separate operations, they're very much related. In fact, my background is really in the beverage area, and when we first took a look at buying Fitz's, I talked to our financial partners, and I said, you know, restaurant is really not my background. Maybe we ought to just try to spin the restaurant off. Get rid of the restaurant, and then we can focus on the beverage side, which was really my strength. But it really makes no sense to do it. It makes no sense to do it because the bottling operation is inside the restaurant, is a very integral part to that restaurant activity. And because one of the single most important marketing tools that we have, and we'll talk more about this, is having a great experience at the restaurant. So if you have a great experience at the restaurant, you'll be much more inclined to purchase the product once you go to the store. So because of those things, we decided, no, we're going to keep it all together, and we'll just kind of deal with the nuances of a restaurant as we go along, which is what we've been doing. What are some of our brand strengths? We've been a St. Louis icon since 1947. Pretty good awareness, good quality image within Metro St. Louis. Some of our restaurant strengths, well, probably our strongest, most marketable feature is the fact that we have this unique bottling line within the restaurant. And for those people who have not visited Fitz's, this is kind of the dining area here. And then behind this row of windows that you can look into is our bottling operation. And there just aren't many places like that. As far as we know, it is the only soda manufacturing operation that is tightly connected to a restaurant. Now, there's a lot of microbreweries running around where you can go and have beer, and you can take a look at the tanks. And if you've been to the Maplewood plant for Schlafly's, they actually have a packaging line in there now, so you can go and watch the packaging as well. But we're not sure that there's any other soda manufacturer that really combines this experience. So that is our unique feature. It's a fun, informal atmosphere with broad age appeal, but especially good for families. And that's really true. We focus mostly on families. But we have an extraordinarily broad demographic reach. We got all kinds of people in our restaurant. We have construction workers, we have white-collar workers. We are a campus town for WashU, so we have a lot of college students. We have grandparents coming in with grandchildren. We have lots of families, and we like that. But our core is really going after the family business. We think we have a friendly staff. Most of our staff people are college age and are either, well, they're attending college in some way, shape, or form. You know, some of them are pretty serious about it, and some of them are still kind of trying to find themselves. But by and large, they're mostly college students, and they have a good time. Casual dining with a relatively broad menu. It's not just a diner. There is a little bit more to our restaurant experience than just having hamburgers and fries. Although that said, hamburgers and fries are an important part of our menu operation. We like the Loop location. It's kind of centrally located within Metro St. Louis. It's close to WashU. It's close to Forest Park. It's not downtown, but we think that's actually a bit of an advantage for us. And then last but not least, we think it's a good value. Our retail soda strengths, quality flavors and image. We use some of the original flavor extracts that Mr. Fitzpatrick put together, and we still use cane sugar. And for us, cane sugar is probably the biggest, easiest communicated advantage that our soda has over most other sodas. Most of the large manufacturers like Pepsi or Coke or Dr. Pepper, any of those, are primarily using high fructose corn syrup. And we are one of the few bottlers that still use cane sugar. We think it delivers a better flavor. It has better mouthfeel, something that we call mouthfeel. And we also think that it's marginally better for you in terms of how it gets digested. So we are big proponents of cane sugar. We're only available in long neck bottles, in kegs, and we'll talk about that as being both an advantage and a disadvantage. In the Metro St. Louis area, we actually have very good supermarket distribution. We're in Schnucks and Deerbergs and Shop and Save. We are not in a Walmart, and we are not in a store like Aldi. We would probably not be in a store that really focuses on real low prices, because we are not a low price brand. But we are in most of the mainstream supermarkets. Limited but loyal on-premise distribution. On-premise would be restaurants, delis, and bars. And you can't find it everywhere in St. Louis. I mean, if you go to a national chain, with the exception of like an Applebee's or Fridays, you're not going to find Fitz's. But we do have a lot of delis, a lot of mom and pop restaurants and bars that sell our product because they want something different. They want something other than Coke or Pepsi on the gun. And those people tend to be very loyal, so that's good. Let's see, we have recent inroads with Sam's Clubs and Costco. That's been a big deal for us and has helped us in terms of just moving additional volume. We have been in the St. Louis area and Kansas City area Costco stores for about 3 or 4 years now, and we just picked up Sam's Club this spring in Metro St. Louis. Although we are not necessarily in each and every Sam's Club, it's kind of selective depending upon kind of the customer mix that they have for that particular store. Is everyone okay? Anyone have any questions yet? Is anyone befuddled? All right.
Only restaurant you have.
It is the only restaurant, yes. And one is enough, thank you.
Not considering going into other cities.
I know we have. And the prior owners actually went into Kansas City. There is a Union Station in Kansas City similar to a Union Station in St. Louis. And they went there with a Fitz's complete bottling line, and very nicely done. But it was kind of at an early stage in the Union Station development, and they didn't get nearly the traffic that people thought they were going to get down there. So it closed after a couple years. That all took place before we got involved with it. So it has been outside of St. Louis. It's been to Kansas City, but you know, and we'll look at it as a potential growth opportunity. But right now our preference is to try to grow the soda side of the business a little bit more. Restaurant weakness, the physical size for everyone who's been there, it's kind of a small building. It's an old bank building. It's built in 1928, and it's got a lot of character, but it's got a lot of the nuances that go with plumbing and electrical and everything else that was stuck in a building back in 1928. So it's always a little bit of a challenge to deal with the building, and it is relatively small. We've done some things that allow us to get more volume through the building. Probably a good example of that is if you've been there, you know we have an upstairs bar area. And the upstairs bar area was traditionally our smoking location. But we made a decision a couple years ago that we were not going to be smoking in the bar because we had way too many non-smokers coming in that wanted to be seated, and we were wasting space. You'd walk in on a Friday afternoon, and there'd be a 45-minute wait for a table downstairs, and you'd go upstairs in the smoking area, and you could shoot a cannon off in the place. So that didn't make any sense. That was bad business. So we've got one of these unusual policies, and I don't know of any other restaurant that does it, but our upstairs area is non-smoking until 10, and then at 10 we flip it over to smoking. So we're trying to have our cake and eat it too. We're trying to crank through more of the non-smoking family groups as they come to the restaurant, but we don't want to forget some of our late night visitors who are completely different from the families that are there during the day. I don't know if you've ever been down in the Loop, but you would appreciate what I'm saying. And the Loop location is both a blessing and a curse. The blessing side is kind of just the geographical location relative to the rest of St. Louis. Being close to WashU has been a real blessing for us, and WashU has made an extraordinarily strong commitment to the Loop and making sure it's clean and safe and everything else. So that's been a real plus for us. The curse is, it is the loop after all, and not everyone from West County or not everyone from Jefferson County is going to drive all the way up to the loop to go to Fitz's, so that's kind of the downside. It's difficult to replicate without bottling operation, and this kind of gets back to what happened in Kansas City. What separates us, what truly makes us unique is having this bottling line in the building. And the reality of the situation is we do not need additional bottling capacity at this point in time. So if we were to build another restaurant in the St. Louis area, we need to have the bottling line because that's what separates Fitz's from everyone else, but we really don't need the bottling line. We need it, but we don't need it. And so because of that, we just kind of delay the decision. You know, we think about it a lot. We do not have the operating resources of large national chains. That's just obvious. We do not have the leverage. We don't have the buying power. And that's something that you live with, or any single store operation lives with. If you don't have multiple locations where you can really go in and leverage the volume with your suppliers, it's tougher to do. On the retail soda side, we have a premium price. So we can frequently knock a lot of people out of the market that just simply don't want to spend that much on a soda. Limited packaging, and again, that's a curse and a blessing. We are only available in a glass long neck bottle. It is a blessing in the sense that that is not a package that the big guys mess around with much. You know, occasionally Coke will do a commemorative bottle, and occasionally Pepsi will do a commemorative bottle. But their core volume's all about cans and PET bottles, and we don't package in either of those. So we're basically staying away from the big guys. We're avoiding them by that long neck bottle. Obviously, the curse is there are a lot of retail outlets that don't want to mess around with a glass bottle. We are pretty much locked out of most convenience stores. Convenience stores wants a plastic 20-ounce bottle with a wide mouth, kind of a get-and-go kind of product. And so our kind of specialty glass soda is not really appropriate for a convenience store. And there's a lot of volume, a lot of beverage volume that goes through convenience stores. Let's see, we have poor awareness and distributor interest outside of St. Louis. It is clearly a Metro St. Louis brand. And once you get up into the Chicago area, or even Kansas City, when the guys first went over to Kansas City, not too much awareness of it. Now that's gradually changing. We have a distributor out in New York City, another one in Dallas, and another one in Los Angeles. And so we're starting to get a little bit of awareness in those markets. But the volume they're selling is really pretty small compared to what we do here in St. Louis. So that's a problem. That's a weakness for us. And then we do not have the operating resources of national brands. The same issue that we have on the restaurant side, we have on the bottling side. So one of the things that we've done is, for example, when we purchase glass, we think we buy a lot of glass. We go through about 2 million bottles every year, but it is just so small compared to the beer guys out there. And so what we do is joint purchase with Schlafly. The glass that we use, or at least our amber glass, is exactly the same glass they use for their beer. The only difference is we get a twist-off finish versus the pry-off. When we get a Schlafly, it's a pry-off, and ours is a twist-off. Other than that, it's exactly the same bottle. So that's allowed us to more than double our volume in terms of negotiating price. But even doubling that volume, it's still pretty small. So let's see, our competitive advantage on the restaurant side, it offers St. Louis consumers a unique dining experience that's casual and entertaining with a good value and having a broad demographic appeal. So that's kind of a summation in one sentence of all the things that we've kind of talked about up to this point in time. And on the retail side, same kind of deal. It offers consumers a high-quality traditional soda flavors, sweetened with cane sugar and bottled in their hometown. All right? Fitz's marketing approach. Now we're going to get specifically into marketing. And I always like to use a famous quote from Wee Willie Horton. Wee Willie Horton was a professional baseball player at the turn of the century, and not the last century, but I mean the 20th century, back in the 1800s, 1900s. And Wee Willie had a very simple approach to baseball. Hit the ball where they ain't. And that's what we try to do with our marketing. We try to do things that the large restaurant chains or the large soda bottlers cannot do or don't want to mess around with doing. Maybe they can't, they can do anything with the right amount of money, but they don't want to mess around with. So we cannot compete directly with big restaurant chains or the big bottlers. at what they do best. And what they clearly do best are the media-driven advertising, high-profile sponsorships, and kind of these major league events. You know, Pepsi's involved with all kinds of things, as is Coke. And you look at the amount of advertising on television these days for Fridays or for Applebee's, it's just incredible. And we can't compete with that. We have, what I tell my students is when you're a small business, by definition, you have resource poverty, and there's no way to get around it. You don't have the financial resources, and you don't have the management depth to do a lot of things that big companies do. And so you just got to figure out how to work around it. And that's what guerrilla marketing is all about. Okay. Where can Fitz's hit the ball? We can connect with customers in a different, more targeted, and more personal way, leveraging the restaurant experience, sampling within the community, kind of preaching the Fitz's gospel with school groups, organizations, Jefferson College, and respond quickly to consumer requests and complaints. And I think this is a big deal. One of the things that if we ever get any kind of comment or any kind of complaint, I want that comment or complaint solved within 24 hours. I don't want it to sit there and kind of get lost and, geez, we don't know what to do, we don't know what to say. Say something. Get back to the person. So, and we try to do that. Sometimes we're better than other times. Okay, what I want to do is leverage the restaurant. The restaurant is really a positive three-dimensional experience, can build brand awareness, trial, and loyalty, benefiting both the restaurant operation and the soda operation. It's just absolutely true. I don't know if any of you guys are wine drinkers, but I enjoy wine. And you know what? We went out to Napa maybe 10 or 15 years ago and visited a couple of wineries out there. Had a great time. You know, I had lunch and the weather was killer, as it usually is out in that part of the country. And because of that experience at that particular winery, I still buy that wine. I don't know if the wine's any good or not. I just have no idea. But it just was, remember when we were with our friends and we had a great time and the weather was perfect, and now, maybe that connection won't be quite the same with Fitz's because it's a little different dining experience. But, you know, if families have a good time there, I can remember when my daughter was younger, it was like, if we can find a restaurant that she likes and, you know, I can get a beer and hamburger there, I'm happy. That's all it takes. And so if the kids are happy, that can help us out a lot. Okay. Building restaurant traffic. A bunch of different ways that we try to build our restaurant traffic. One is have excellent service and value with each and every visit. And we try real hard at this. Sometimes we miss the boat. Sometimes the service isn't as good as it should be. Anytime you're trying to manage 20-somethings that have other priorities in life, it can be sometimes difficult to do. But it's like any other business. We got a bell-shaped curve. We got some kids that are absolutely terrific. They're just knockouts. We have a lot that are in the middle that do a pretty adequate job. You know, they do a good job. It's fine. It's what you would expect. And then what we need to worry about are those on the tail end that aren't quite helping us out in terms of this activity. Free flow coupons to stimulate visits. Did everyone get a free flow coupon? Everyone's got a free flow coupon? Good. We hand those out like crazy. Whenever we do our road shows, like at Costco or Sam's, any kind of event. And so the free float is a good way to get people into the restaurant. It supports kind of both sides of the business because it involves root beer, which is what we make, and it involves the restaurant. And it is kind of our visual icon once you're in the restaurant. If you've been there before, or the first time you go there, you see a float come out on a tray, and it's a noticeable experience because there's like 4 mounds of ice cream on top of this frosting mug, and it's really very appealing. So we like using the float as a way of stimulating trial for our business, and it works out pretty well. We do some print advertising, but it's mostly targeted against tourists. We get involved with the St. Louis Convention and Visitors Bureau's guide ad. The state of Missouri has a travel guide that we get involved with, or going to start getting involved with. There's a publication called Where Magazine that's in hotel rooms, and we do that only during the summer months because we're after the family visitors, so we do it in June, July, and August. But we really don't do a huge amount of advertising. We'll do some directory listings. We have a rack brochure. Did everyone get a rack brochure as well? That's kind of our utility piece. Again, it's something that we hand out whenever we're talking about Fitz's, because it kind of explains who we are, what our brand positioning is, and why we're better and separate from everyone else. We have a website, and then we like public relations opportunities. Oh, you can't see me. This is everything from Rachel Ray. Rachel came in a couple years ago. This is when she was still on the Food Network and did a piece for her Tasty Travel segment. So that was a pretty big publicity event. And what was cool about that is I think she only went to like 20 cities, and then they kept rerunning the program. So that one program that she did on St. Louis must have run a half a dozen times, and it had, you know, national exposure for us, so we like that a lot. But even something as simple as you know, the Post-Dispatch about a month ago had a photo contest of showing your family at a St. Louis tradition. And maybe it's sledding at Art Hill, lunch at Fitz's, day at Six Flags, wherever you like. So we like that. We like that kind of publicity, and that puts us in with some pretty traditional activities for St. Louis people. Art Hill's a huge deal, Six Flags is a huge deal, and lunch at Fitz's hopefully a huge deal too. Recently, Bon Appetit magazine did a piece on root beer. In fact, this was really strange. I got the call, they're based out in Los Angeles, I got a call from, you know, an editorial assistant or something like that that said, well, we'd like to get 2 bottles of your root beer. And I said, okay, that's fine. What we normally ship out is a 12-bottle box. That's what it's designed for whenever we do any kind of shipping out. Do you want me to send 12 bottles? No, I want 2 bottles. Okay, so the big box, 2 bottles in it. And so, you know, I kept looking for this story. And, you know, there is a Barnes & Noble close by, so I go into the Barnes & Noble, and there's no story. And next month, no story, no story. I thought, well, maybe it just, you know, hit the cutting room floor or something, just didn't make it. And then finally in September, the story came out, and they listed their top 6 picks of root beer in the U.S., and we were one of them. So that was a pretty big deal. And so normally I don't spend money on having a full-time PR person, but I do know someone who does PR on a project basis. So I called her up and I said, you know, we ought to try to do something with this. And she said, well, you know, I think you got the print cover, because a lot of the internet sites immediately picked up on it. She said, why don't we, you know, put together some 4-packs of Fitz's root beer, and I've got a guy that can drop them off at the radio stations and TV stations, and we'll give them a couple of mugs to go with it, and we'll have this little gift pack, and we'll see if they can talk about it. And I think some of them did. Occasionally I run into people and say, oh, I saw something about Fitz's root beer on some morning show. But the one thing that we did get out of it for sure is the television program Show Me St. Louis got it and said, you know, we haven't done much on Fitz's in about 3 or 4 years, so they came out and did something about a week or 2 ago, and she did a great job on it. It's just, boy, talk about how that industry's changed. The first year that they did this, which was like 3 or 4 years ago, they had the on-camera talent there. They had someone that was running the video. They had a producer there. And so they had like 3 people that showed up to do this little 2-minute video. Well, this time around, it was this kind of cub reporter who's also doing all the video stuff as well. So she's lugging around the video machine, and she's setting it up and getting it adjusted. And so I guess every industry is changing these days. So PR is an important part, and for all gorillas, PR is an important thing to have, because it doesn't really cost you anything. Now, there may be some things you have to do that have some costs that will generate that publicity, but by and large, it's not like buying advertising on the Super Bowl. It's a lot more cost efficient. And the other thing you get with PR is you've got this third-party credibility. It's just not me telling you how wonderful Fitz's is. It's some third-party source that's hopefully telling you that. Of course, the downside is you never know exactly what they're going to say. So, another thing we do is we do a lot of sampling. We have a cake donation program for appropriate not-for-profit and charity events. So if you're having some kind of big charity event where you're going to have maybe over 100 people, we will donate a cake and the cups and everything else. But it's got to be more than just your birthday. It's got to be something that is some charity other than just you. And we do a lot of those. And actually, we've done a lot with college campuses lately, especially on their alcohol awareness programs. And that's becoming a bigger and bigger issue on college campuses. So when they have some kind of alcohol awareness program, they like the idea of having a kegger out there so they can do a kegger. It just happens to have root beer in it. And so that's worked out real well. And we also do sampling at high-profile community events, such as the Best of Missouri. Does anyone here go to the Best of Missouri at the Botanical Garden? That's a great show for us. That is just a terrific program, and we look forward to that every year. Zoofari is something the St. Louis Zoo does every other year, and we're involved with it this year. Cooking for Kids, another charity, Microbrew Fest, which is up in Forest Park in the spring, and a bunch of others. So sampling is an important thing that we do. What I like about our keg program is the thing that costs me the most is labor cost. And so if I can donate a keg and I don't have to get involved with providing the labor, which I don't, it's wonderful because I've got someone out there who's doing the sampling for me who loves it because they've got soda that they just got for free, and I'm getting the exposure. So it works real well. Okay, preaching the gospel. We do this a couple of different ways. We have a field trip program that's directed at St. Louis area middle and grade schools, and that takes place like on a Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday morning. The kids come in, we talk about how we make our soda, we talk about the history of the neighborhood, we talk about the Walk of Fame that's in our neighborhood as well. And so it's about a half-hour, 45-minute program. They get to see the bottling line in operation. We explain what's going on each and every step. And then if they want to stay for lunch, they can, but they don't have to. I'd say probably 85 to 90% will go ahead and stay for lunch. So we make a little money off it, too. That's not bad. And the thing I like about this, again, it goes back to my own experience. If you can get the kid cranked up about a location, and if it's an acceptable location for you, you're going to go there, because it makes the kid happy, you know? And so I know that we got, in the vast majority of these field trip programs, we got these little ambassadors, little, 7 and 8-year-old ambassadors going out saying, Mom and Dad, can we go back to Fitz's because we had such a good time there? Not only can we go back to Fitz's, but I'm going to tell you how they make their soda. I learned something, so hopefully that works. Programs includes, I went through that. Feedback and reviews have really been good. And then I also think something like this is preaching the gospel, is getting out in the community and just talking about our business. Tomorrow there's a MBA group, an executive MBA group meeting at WashU, and I'll kind of do the same little pitch with them as well. But that's what I keep telling my students. The single most important, biggest marketing tool you're going to have is you. It's not your advertising campaign. It's not your direct mail. It's not maybe some guy you hired to go out and try to sell for. It's you. And if you can't get out and sell your product or your service, then you have to rethink if you really want to be doing this, if this is really the kind of thing you want to do with your life. And that doesn't mean you have to be the world's biggest extrovert. You just have to be able to talk about the product in a reasonable way. So our retail efforts tend to be a little bit more traditional, and that's because our customer is more traditional. We'll do price promotions with Schnucks and Dierbergs, and we'll try to get off-shelf displays like we have right here. I think this was one that was maybe at a Dierbergs, and they dropped in an ice cream cooler here, so they were trying to sell ice cream and our soda during the summer months. We do road shows with Sam's Club and Costco. Did I see any of you at the road show in Sam's? Someone mentioned something about this. Did I see you there? Yeah, that's a big deal. We love these road shows. We go in, normally we just sell a case of root beer, but we go in with all of our flavors and we make a variety pack for the customers. It is a triple win. It's a win for that Costco store or Sam's store because they get incremental volume that they wouldn't normally get. It is a win for the customer because they're getting something special at a real good price. I mean, a real good price. And it's good for us because we're getting brand exposure and sampling at a point of sale, the place where people can actually buy our soda. So it works all the way around, triple win. Near-term growth strategies increase consumer demand for both the restaurant and sodas, and that's what we keep working at day in and day out. Increase retail throughputs using current supermarket distribution. That is primarily kind of working on our price promotion strategy and our promotional activities with the large chains. expand our on-premise distribution within Metro St. Louis. And trust me, there are still lots of bars and restaurants in St. Louis that don't have Fitz's. Now, sometimes it can be a very difficult sell because if they already have Pepsi or Coke on the gun, they're not going to do any flipping over to have Fitz's root beer there. So it can be somewhat of a tough sell, but there's always an opportunity to expand it. Expand distribution into geography contiguous to Metro St. Louis. We just recently did, and this isn't exactly contiguous, but I guess it's contiguous in our book. We did a road show at Sam's in Springfield, Missouri. And I was talking, a brand new Sam's store, great looking Sam's store. I was talking to the manager and I said, you know, people down here really know about Fitz's, and they do. There's a lot of St. Louis transplants that are in that Springfield area. I said, I think you could sell some of our products, so we're going to start selling there. But that's an example of how you can kind of expand out from the St. Louis area. And so that's what we'll continue doing. And then fine-tune our restaurant offering and increase profitability. Let's see. Long-term, expand soda distribution into markets beyond our current market area and add restaurant locations. And this is the big challenge, the big creative challenge for us, is how do we maintain the uniqueness of Fitz's without having a bottling line in each and every location? And that's one of the things that we talk about and think about, and hopefully we'll come up with a formula that we think will work for us. Pardon me? Video. Yeah, we could do video. Actually, one of our other ideas is, because most soda is not available on draft, but we package in kegs so it can be on draft, is actually make a Fitz's draft house, where maybe you have the kegs in a visible area, and then the lines maybe are clear plastic lines, and so somehow you're sitting in the store and you can actually see this soda coming out of the kegs and going to the, you know. But some way we got to come up with something that isn't putting another bottling line in. Yeah.
You guys have never considered going to like tourist destinations, Orlando, Walt Disney World, facilities like that that are scattered around the United States that have a high volume of people plus
Yeah.
your personal appeal
Yeah.
would be something that would mix with the market and
Yeah.
surrounding that area.
Yeah, you're right. Probably if I had more experience with the restaurant side of the business, I'd be more willing to do that. And I am getting some experience. And my interest, quite frankly, in expanding in the past has been largely driven by how good our general manager was at the restaurant. Because you want to feel a certain comfort level that you've got someone there that can keep that machine going. And we have a great general manager right now. General manager that we picked up a couple of years ago. And so that gives me more comfort and increased my interest in looking at things like that, something that's a little bit more far-fetched. But it's all, you know, it's all driven largely by, do you not only have the financial resources, but do you have the infrastructure and people resources available to make a move like that? That's a big move. Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head, though. You're talking about a good manager. No matter what restaurant you go to, if the manager is interested, he's there, he's seeing the people.
Yeah.
But conversely, it's immediately apparent when you go into a restaurant.
And there's no one there. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a bummer.
Yeah. So and it's a big deal, and because it's such an important part, customer service is such an important part of that restaurant business, and it is largely driven by leadership. So, yeah.
Just you saying about management, you say that you acquired one recently.
Mhm.
How many general managers?
How many have we been through? How many have we chewed through?
Have you guys actually looked at the numbers of how many you've gone through to take you guys to
Yeah.
get a level of stability?
Let's see. The first general manager, we bought the business 6 years ago. The first general manager was a general manager that was there from the prior owner, and he was actually a Fridays guy because Fridays, the St. Louis franchise for Fridays had a management contract to run the restaurant, and he was one of their people. And so we had him on board for 2 years, and then he went back to Fridays. And we promoted the guy who was our kitchen manager, and that was that was a big mistake. There's a big difference between running a kitchen and running a store. And so we went to the outside, and this guy's been on board for about 2.5 years now, and it does a real good job, So it gives us a higher comfort level that we can move our business forward. But I guarantee you, when we had some problems with that kind of interim manager that was probably, Peter principled to too high of a location. There's no way in the world we'd ever think about doing anything other than making sure the current restaurant stayed on track. That's the that's the reality. I don't know if it's sad or not, it's just reality, yeah.
I guess the second question I'd like to know, how many management do you guys employ versus how many employees you employ?
Oh, yeah, we're pretty thin. I think we're thin. We have a general manager for the restaurant, and then right now he has 3 managers reporting to him. Because remember, our restaurant opens at 11 a.m. and the bar closes at 1:30. So every day, Sunday it's shorter because of liquor laws, but every day you've got this cycle that you got to go through. So that's a pretty good number, having 4 total managers for the restaurant. On the bottling side, we have kind of the general manager of the bottling, and she's got an assistant, and that's it. 2 people. And when I first got involved, she was on the line getting the stuff filled. She's doing less and less of that and worrying more about logistics and warehousing and purchasing and things that she should stay focused on. So, yeah, back here.
How many shifts a week do you have to run that bottling?
You know what? It depends upon the time of the year. During the summer, we typically do 5 days, and on Fridays and Saturdays, we'll do 2 shifts on those 2 days. During the winter, nowhere close to that. We will do maybe 1 shift on Friday, 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday, and that's it. That's it for the week. So we do have a seasonality to our business, to the bottling side of the business. Unfortunately, it's the same seasonality that we have for the restaurant as well, because the restaurant business tanks in the winter as well. Doesn't tank, but isn't good. Yeah.
On your product line, do you have a flavor house, or are you your
Yep.
own flavor house, or
No, that's a good question.
with the secret ingredient?
Yeah, with the secret ingredients. Yeah, we do have a flavor house, and almost all of our flavors come from the flavor house in St. Louis that Mr. Fitzpatrick worked with. Now, it's changed hands about 5 different times, and the sales guy, our sales contact, is actually based in New Jersey, even though it's all produced in St. Louis, but that's how business is done these days. So the vast majority of our flavors come from the original flavor house Mr. Fitzpatrick worked with. What we get is a gallon jug of extract that says Fitz's root beer, Fitz's orange, Fitz's cream, Fitz's grape. So it's made to our specification. It is our extract. We just don't make it, okay? And then the one flavor, 1 or 2, I think it's only 1 flavor right now, comes from Grapette. Do any of you remember Grapette? Well, Grapette kind of made a segue from the grape side of the business into extracts. So they do a lot of extracts these days. And they're based down in Arkansas, and I think our strawberry and maybe our orange cream comes from Grapette. So, but no, we don't make any of those extracts ourselves. Yeah.
You would assume that root beer is probably your number 1 seller. What's
Correct.
number 2 and 3?
Let's see, number 1 would be our regular root beer, number 2 would be our diet root beer. And number 3 and 4 are kind of tied, orange and cream, and then it kind of drops off from there. There's another lower plateau that would have grape and the orange cream and strawberry and the diet cream, those kind of flavors. So, but the root beer and diet root beer account for about 2/3 of our total volume, so it's a big deal. Yeah, we are known primarily for the root beer. And even when we do things like events like this, a lot of times people will say, oh, I didn't know you had other flavor. We do those road shows. People will walk up and say, oh, I thought you only sold root beer. So it's a good opportunity for us to sample some of our other flavors as well. Okay, yeah.
How do you take in, you make it with pure cane sugar?
Yep.
The candy company's wanting to increase importing of sugar.
Yeah, we're going to face some pretty stiff price increases pretty soon, real stiff price increases. But we're still going to stay true to the cane sugar thing. We're not going to go to high fructose corn syrup. And probably what I'm going to have to do is just what I call a cost push price increase to our retailers that will help cover the cost of that cane sugar increase. But we have built our unique competitive positioning on the soda side based upon cane sugar, so we'll stick with it. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to presume that when you have a school group there, that you are operating a bottling.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and this was on Wednesday, Thursday.
It's Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and you need to make a reservation ahead of time.
Phone number? One that's on here?
Yeah, or yes, that's probably the best way to go.
And you accept home school groups?
Homeschool? Oh, yeah, we do all kinds of homeschool groups, all the time, yeah. And they have associations, so there's usually maybe 20 or 25 people in total. So, but no, we do homeschool a lot.
Okay.
In fact, sometimes the homeschool is a little bit easier to deal with because they're just easier to deal with. Yeah.
How many new products you have in research?
Yeah, well, that's new flavors.
New flavors,
Yeah, that's kind of a dilemma for us. We like putting together new flavors, but let me tell you the sad reality of the situation. And that is, we are only given so much shelf space at Schnucks and Dierberg's and those supermarkets. And if we want to add new flavor, we can, but it means we're going to have to give up a facing of one of our other flavors. And invariably what happens is we give up a facing of root beer, which we don't want, and we especially don't want it during the summer months because we run out of stock. Out of stock is a big problem for us during the summer months, especially on root beer. So, and you know, we've kind of messed around with flavors that we'll just sell in the restaurant, but right now we do not intend to follow a growth strategy that's driven by continuous new product introductions. So.
Have you joined the Facebook and Twitter?
Yeah, Fitz's has a Facebook. Yeah, we do not Twitter, but we might, and I may not be aware of it. I mean, that's altogether possible.
Never say never.
Never say never. Actually, the guy who kind of manages all this for me is a former bartender of ours who got an MBA from UMSL and then decided for whatever reason that he wanted to go to Latin America. So he goes off to Peru, and now he's living in Bogota, Colombia. But he's kind of looking for work. So one of the things I put him in charge of was our Facebook page. So, and it's relatively new. We've only been doing it for maybe 3 months, 4 months. Yeah.
Do you guys monitor how much running supply you guys have on hand versus the consumption going on out there?
Yes, we do. I mean, we monitor our inventory levels, and the good news is about our business is that we can turn around an order quickly. And we usually ask our large buyers to give us like a 3-day lead time. And if we need to, we can produce product to that order within 3 days. We can do it within 2 days. It's that quick.
1 week supply.
Yeah, yeah.
Outgoing
Yeah.
ratio.
I mean, and what we try to do, we're like everyone else, we try to reduce the amount of inventory we carry because inventory is cash. But we've had, I can't really think of any situation, there's been some, but not many, where we've had to, where we've run out of stock and couldn't ship because it's so easy to.
I was just curious, I heard that Anheuser-Busch can get stuck with a 3-week running supply sometimes on hand.
Yeah.
Versus their demand.
Yeah. Well, that's,
You guys hit
the wholesaler can, you mean?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, the brewery does, and I tell you that, they're not gonna have a 3-week supply of anything.
Yeah.
That goes right out the door. The wholesaler is the one that gets stuck with it. That's who gets stuck with it, yeah.
Does soda have a shelf life, or is it pretty much?
Yeah, it's about 6 months, yeah. I mean, the biggest problem you run into is it loses the carbonation. You know, that seal on the crown is tight, but it's not killer tight, so over time you can start losing some of the carbonation. Yeah,
Can you accommodate Sam's all over the United States?
No.
Or just in our
No.
areas where Sam's is?
yeah, I mean, we can do a little bit more than our area, but no, we couldn't do. If we had a national contract with Sam's, we'd have to find contract bottlers to help us out. Pardon me, same with Costco, yeah, absolutely, yeah, yeah. They can buy a lot of product. I mean, it's pallet loads going out the door, which is what we like, you know, we're happy. So, but also can come and go quickly too. I mean, they are pretty rigorous. If they're not getting the kind of turn on the space that you're occupying, adios, you're out. They'll find someone else that can.
I work for Energizer, and I know that they're quite demanding.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Although I will, yeah, they are. That's the nature of their business, so. Okay, any more questions here? Good. Well, thank you very much. I enjoyed talking with you.